I think our clock is showing 2 o'clock, so that would be appropriate for us to get started and call the meeting to order. I noticed that we have 26 people on, so that's going to make me think we likely have a quorum. If we could, though, Dr. Patrick, go through and verify that for us, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So I will go ahead and call the names of the work group members here. If you are present, please unmute yourself and indicate your presence. So I'll start with Harris County Commissioner Adrian Garcia.
Hey, good afternoon, Patrick. This is Milton Roman. Commissioner Garcia will be joining shortly.
Thank you, Milton. Dr. Carol Lewis is present.
Yes.
Chair Karen Patman. HGAC Executive Director Chuck Wemple.
Here, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey,
Chuck.
Patrick, I think I saw Tom Lambert on for Karen Patman. He's on mute.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. I am on the line, but I know the chair will be joining any moment now.
Thank you, Tom. Liberty County, David Douglas. City of Houston Council Member David Robinson.
I'm here, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. TxDOT Houston District Engineer Eliza Paul.
Patrick, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Eliza. Fort Bend County Commissioner Grady Prestige. City of Sugar Land Mayor Joe Zimmerman.
I'm here, Patrick. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Waller County Commissioner Justin Beckendorf.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here.
Thank you, Commissioner. City of League City Council Member Larry Milliken.
I'm present.
Thank you, Council Member. Montgomery County Judge Mark Hill. City of Waller Council Member Nancy Arnold. Port of Houston Executive Director Roger Gunther.
I'm here.
Thank you, Roger. Harris County Flood Control District Executive Director Russ Poppy. And ex officio House of Representatives Ed Thompson.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Representative.
So that does certify our quorum.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being on. I'd like to check now and make sure that we have our citizenry on, so we ensure that we have alleviated our issues from the last meeting. So why don't I do that? Patrick, why don't we do that by going ahead and seeing if there are any comments and just trying to verify that, if you don't mind.
Madam Chair, before we invite public comments, we do have a written comment. And I would like to invite Ms. Neely Kim from our staff to make a summary of that comment.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon. We did have one, and this is from the Citizens Transportation Coalition, CTC. They have reviewed the MOU and its markup, as well as the documents that the City of Houston has developed, resulting from its public participation meetings, as well as our own comments. The draft NHHIP Community Impact Assessment, CIA Technical Report, Volume 2. We greatly appreciate HGAC's piloting this process and allowing the public to make comments. CTC has decided it is not appropriate or beneficial for an organization like ours to comment on the wordsmithing of the MOU, but We do submit two major substantive recommendations, one being using the city's meetings as a template for setting the MOU comments regarding community impact items, fixing a timeline for mitigation, fixing a line item budget for each impact, and coordinating the budget into FEIS or reevaluation to prevent shortage of funds to mitigation community impacts. And two, clarifying the need for and how reevaluation of the project's impacts from a notice and public comment standpoint. And that is it. That concludes the comments.
All right.
Thank you, Neely. So with that, Madam Chair, we can invite any public that would like to make a comment using either Zoom link or through the teleconference number we have provided. If you're on the telephone number, toll-free number, and if you're muted right now, you can press *9 to raise hand, and we'll be able to unmute you, or you can unmute yourself as well by pressing *6. So first we'll look at the members that are on the participant list and see if there are any raised hand or anyone who would like to make a public comment. I do see Harrison Humphreys who has raised hand. Greg, will you be able to unmute him to speak?
Yes, Patrick.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, working group members, staff. My name is Harrison Humphreys, and I'm with Airlines Houston. Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I gave comments prior to the meeting adjourning a couple weeks ago, so I'll just briefly reiterate some of those sentiments here. Following discussion on the potential MOU the past 2 months has been, quite frankly, disheartening. What should be a forward-thinking process about ways to work within existing frameworks, implement innovative redesigns that not only meet the needs of the growing region, but also address the life-altering concerns of the communities most affected by this project has been instead drugged down into a frustrating fight by parties who refuse to acknowledge there are alternatives to continuing to try and fail at building roads faster than our population grows. At this point of the project, it's embarrassing that the policymakers dictating the future viability of transportation in this region refuse to recognize transportation planning realities long ago accepted and incorporated by more innovative regions. A preponderance of academic and even anecdotal evidence show that expanding main lane capacity will not solve our congestion issues. As Dr. Lewis stated during the last MOU meeting, we have seen time and time again, we simply will never outbuild our congestion. It is well past time that we recognize that fact and begin seriously exploring other alternatives. Outside of the evidentiary arguments, though, the purpose of this MOU process is to address the concerns of the vast number of Houstonians who made their voices heard and gave their input on the project. The past year's community engagement process yielded an overwhelming outpouring of opposition to plans that would rely on destroying communities to pursue the ineffective freeway expansions. They instead asked for a cooperative design that incorporates multimodal infrastructure that is more equitable, more environmentally sustainable, and will ultimately go farther in addressing the issues that TxDOT is seeking to fix. This MOU and its language should reflect those asks. If this working group walks away with an MOU framework that doesn't adequately outline a forward-thinking vision of this project, that ignores the pleas of communities and the mayor's invitation to cooperate, I firmly believe all parties involved will come to regret it. Finally, I think it would give some observers of this process some clarification if Ms. Eliza Paul could more clearly explain her comments towards the end of the meeting a few weeks ago, in which she made the claim that capacity expansion was necessary for whatever mode might eventually take up the corridor space. Could you clarify that, are you committing TxDOT to exploring converting these lanes to mass transit in the future? Is there any specific study that you're referencing that's been conducted that shows the extra capacity is needed for multimodal improvements? And finally, I think you said that capacity could be used for other things long-term, but that it was needed short-term for congestion. I think clarifying long versus short-term would give me some peace of mind. Thank you for your time and allowing me the opportunity to provide comments.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison Humphreys. Is there anyone else that we have?
I'm not seeing anybody. Patrick, Neely, are you seeing anybody?
No, I am not.
Okay.
That looked like that was it.
All right, awesome. All right, thank you all for participating. We really appreciate hearing from you, understanding that we want to understand and recognize your time in coming to us and making your voices heard. Secondarily, I want to mention that I did receive, we all did in the chat, that the link was working this time and that citizens wanting to observe and participate were able to do so. I think it's worth noting that we learned after.
As well, and we're ready for any necessary rescue.
Okay, I don't know that that was something that we were trying to hear. Just making sure everybody's on mute until you're recognized. We appreciate that. We learned after the meeting that Zoom was having a problem and that they actually disabled some of their systems the following week. So it may have been that all of that glitch really wasn't caused by things that had been done on our side, but really may have been just a part of that malfunction. So just making that known, I think, is important. So with that, I think we're ready to go on to item number 3, proposed changes to the working draft memorandum of understanding since the last meeting. Patrick, if we go ahead with that.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you. So this working draft has been circulated to all work group members and other members, other interested parties as well. These are posted online. So there's color coding based on the discussion at the previous meetings. The portions that were discussed and covered and completed, which are background and purpose sections, are color coded in green font in here. The additional sections that, parts of the sections that work group members have asked HGAC staff to look into and create some draft language to review. Those sections are highlighted in yellow. So you'll see specifically those sections on the draft that HGAC staff has drafted for work groups review based on the direction provided at the last meeting are in yellow. So we will continue to review those in this meeting. And then everything else is not highlighted in here, which is specifically the scope of work section that the work group will be reviewing as well in this meeting and upcoming meetings. Also, in addition to this document, there is an additional document that I have sent to all members, which is a combined comments document. So I have received comments from different parties, and I've combined all those inter-track changes into one document for the convenience of work group members to look everything into one document. And that has been circulated as well. So we can review that and refer to that as needed. So with that, Madam Chair, if you would like to, we can start from the sections that we have completed and specifically look at the yellow highlighted sections which HGAC staff has drafted for work group member review.
Okay. Yes, please. If we could go ahead with that, that sounds great. I don't know, Patrick, just for me, can we make that image a little larger? I'm sure I'm not the only one with eyes that are over 50. Check your microphones, people, please.
We just always take a photo session.
Again, please check your microphones. Thank you. Okay.
So, work group members, the first part of the section here that is under the purpose of the MOU is to clarify language related to looking at following the record of decision, TxDOT in coordination with other parties will conduct the detailed design phases of the project development to further explore and refine mitigation measures. Parties are committed to judiciously identify win-win opportunities to make the project reflect the collective best efforts. So this is based on the description that we have reviewed in the last meeting from the letter that TxDOT Executive Director James Bass has written to the State Representative Ed Thompson. And we all reviewed that letter language and discussed, and we thought this type of language can be drafted into the MOU purpose. So please let us know if you have any comments on this one.
Okay. All right, committee, we're open for comments on the wording that we see here in yellow, please.
Madam Chair, if I could maybe make a starting comment, this not specific to language, but to remind the committee members, part of our discussion, not necessarily the most end all and be all issue for the city of Houston, but that the MOU purpose and then the scope of work are fairly redundant in our opinion. This is so not to get onto too much specific language yet, but to remind everyone that I believe we're really looking for the most succinct, clearest combined MOU statement that we can have. And there are some things that we feel may be repetitive. Again, it's not the most important point to the city of Houston, but before we get into specifics, I thought I'd mention that.
All right, thank you for that comment. I will take comments from others and opinions from other committee members. So let me pose it this way. Is there anyone who has any misgivings about the language that we see in yellow first?
I'm okay with it, Dr. Lewis. This is Mayor Zimmerman.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we just talking about the highlighted yellow in
Yes.
number 2?
For now, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. No, I enjoyed that language.
Okay. All right. And so again, hearing none others, and it's still open, of course, then I would say that we heard your comment, Councilmember Robinson, and the comment is, as I understand it, is whether we even have this purpose section, or whether we go straight from the background into the scope of work, just to make sure I understand what, and all of us understand exactly what you're suggesting here.
I think that is right, but the third bullet point, I think, could be the part that I think the purpose is expressed by the first, second, and fourth bullet point very nicely. If that third bullet could be considered as a part of the scope of work, that might help from our standpoint to speak to the highlighted yellow components. That really gets to our foremost concern right now, which is to think about that delicate language that we've all known is there regarding what we will be doing in terms of language about exploring alternatives, options, and those types of things. I know that TxDOT is sensitive to that for purposes of submitting a compliant document and other matters that they can articulate better than I can. But so that's a suggestion that third bullet could pull to the scope of work section. Maybe I'll leave it at that. If it is to stay, I think there might be some further language that we could hone in on if it is to stay there.
So let me suggest this. Let me suggest that we keep the first, second, and last bullets in the purpose section, that we put on hold this middle bullet until we go through the scope of work. That way I think we'll understand a little more fully what we actually have in the scope of work. We could be able to tell if that concept, that idea is somehow missing, lacking, weaker, and then we can address it at that point. See if that does make sense to pull it down.
I think that's a good approach, Madam Chair.
Works for
Okay.
me too.
All right, perfect. All right, let's get started on the scope of work.
May
In
I
which
just make
case?
one comment?
Please.
My only concern with proceeding that way is that this really is where the rubber meets the road, this third bullet point. And I feel I'm nervous taking it out even temporarily, because that is the gist of what I think we're all trying to collaborate on here. So I don't I mean, we can always go back and put it back in, but I guess I'm missing the reason to take that out even temporarily, since it's such an important concept.
If we could, I was suggesting that we put it on hold, not take it out right now, but put it on hold. Then I think we can look at exactly what you're raising, Chair, to see if if we go to the bottom, if we actually think that it should be in both places. Okay. So we're having an issue today with folks remembering to kind of stay on mute. I don't know how we're kind of clicking off, but it's a little bit distracting when we hear these other voices in the background. Know that everyone's, many people are kind of multitasking, and understand that. However, if we could be real vigilant about trying not to do that, we would most appreciate it. All right, so if we can, let's go on and move to this first element on the scope of work. At this moment, we've just kind of done a box around the third one. It's still there in the purpose, but there's a box around it, and we'll revisit it after we go through the scope and see exactly, have a real firm kind of agreement, understanding of what we have in the scope. All right, so the first one, everyone kind of read through the first bullet. And this is a revision from what we had conversation about in our last entire meeting. So just kind of look at it again and see if it's reflecting what we intended.
We do have some language, Madam Chair, that we'd like to suggest.
Okay.
Don't mean to dominate here, but without hearing others, the suggestion would be to change the part of the first sentence that speaks to the facility's capacity for automobiles. We'd like to transfer that to something that says increase the facility's long-term capacity for all roadway users, including automobile, freight, and transit, just to, again, emphasize the multimodality that is at the heart of many of the suggestions the city of Houston is making.
Okay.
I would second that.
All right.
I would third it.
Okay. All right, let me ask this question. Patrick, can you go in and click in there now so we can look at it while we're talking? And then we'll see if anyone seems to have any negative thoughts, comments,
Dr.
verbalization
Lewis,
about it. Yes.
This is Mayor Zimmerman. And I don't have any problem with the language change. I would, however, suggest that possibly when I read that, that looks to me like it belongs in the purpose section as opposed to the scope section, under the true definition of a scope of work.
Why? Because it says confirm project goals.
Yes, that's exactly.
So let me just give food for thought with that. Probably one of the initial work activities will be to determine what those goals are. So kind of, to my mind, that makes it something that's an action oriented task. And so when I look and kind of think about what makes the difference between the purpose and the scope, this is just me, right? But in the purpose, you don't pick up a single action from the purpose. The purpose is sort of overarching. But from the scope, you actually end up with a task. So determining these goals is, again, I think, going to be one of the most important things that happens, at least at the beginning. So it's very actionable, and that's just me, which makes me think it is an element that goes under the scope. And And I hear what you were saying, Mayor, but just kind of the other way of looking at that, or maybe a way of looking at it, I guess.
Okay. I'm not.
Well,
real-
Carol, this is Eliza. Can I make a comment?
Sure, absolutely.
Uh-huh. Just two things. When I was reading the sentence, all agencies confirming common project goals to increase facilities capacity for automobiles, improve multimodal transportation system to accommodate future growth. So I was reading it as the capacity is tied to automobiles and also improving the multimodal transportation system that was underneath it. So I'm thinking it addressed both already in that. And my other comment was when it says long term, what exactly does that mean? How long? What does long term mean? 30 to 50 years, or 10 to 20 years, or what kind of timeline are we thinking? You know, and then on the other hand, what do we do with the short-term problems? I mean, or issues that we're having now? You know, we have to address. I mean, we're building it for today and also for tomorrow. So, those are the two things that I just want to bring up.
Okay. All right.
Madam
Thoughts?
Chair, if I may,
Yes, please.
I can tell you that I really enjoyed seeing this particular bullet point brought in, because that was something that I said, is that just like Eliza was saying, is today we're inadequate, and if the whole, one of the main reasons is to correct that inadequate capacity that we have and the congestions, and I think that I really enjoyed seeing the statement just as it is, and wouldn't be in favor of changing it more for the future, other than what it's talking about and accommodating the future growth.
Okay, others? So I think we've heard from 5 people, and our number is far larger. So I'd invite other voices.
Having said it out loud, Chair, I know I'm one of the 5, but the term long term that Eliza brings up, I realized that was actually the subject of the eloquent introductory statement and question comment that we heard from Mr. Harrison Humphreys. So I think without defining short, long, current goals, it does become a bit ambiguous, and I understand. I think the more important thing to the city is really that we're talking about the multimodality components of the facility.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that we're probably all going to be okay with not putting in a time component. Just leave the time component out. Is that what I sort of heard?
I agree with that.
Okay.
And forgive me, everybody. I threw out my back yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, and I can barely sit up, so I'm reclining. So that's why I look so funny. But I really feel very strongly that we have to have Councilmember Robinson's proposed language in there. It has to reference transit. I mean, because HOV lanes are transit, bus rapid transit is transit. And so, you know, the way that Councilmember Robinson phrased it, I think was good. Long-term, short-term, et cetera. Don't have any issues with what people want to do there, but I really feel very strongly about his proposed language on the first sentence.
Okay. All right. All right. So
it anchors around the phrase all roadway users.
all right. So I do have a thought, but I want to retain my thought until everyone who has an opinion or would like to voice a thought about this has spoken. So I'm inviting others. If you have specifically not negating folks who have spoken, but specifically if you have not spoken, I would like to make a comment on this, inviting you now. And then we'll, give you a little pause to get your mic unmuted. And if we don't hear anything, I'll kind of weigh in with a thought.
Dr. Lewis, this is Roger Gunther.
Yes, please.
Just a thought, are we not trying to accommodate current and future demand? Would that make it sound better?
So I think the discussion is around how we include the language about roadway users, automobiles and such. So I'll now kind of kick in with my thought. I think what I'm hearing from the city's revision is an attempt to make sure that the language is not hierarchical in its presentation. So if we start off with all roadway users and start off with automobiles, it almost sounds like the automobiles are having priority. And I think the rephrasing is trying to sort of level the playing field, for lack of a better phraseology, about all modes. So I think that's what I'm hearing in what their recommendation is.
Can you meet that by getting all forms of transportation?
Councilmember Robinson, can you say it again? Which is why I think if there was a way we could see it, it would help us a bit. But would you mind reading it again? And oh, awesome. Would you mind reading it again so that we can actually see it on screen? And I think let's leave out the long-term part.
Yes.
Now.
I got two long terms that I'm going to omit this time and focus on roadway users. So the what we're proposing is to change from to increase the facility's capacity for automobiles to quote, increase the facility's capacity for all roadway users. And then there's a second part to that highlighted first bullet that would be increase the facility's capacity for all roadway users, including automobile, freight, and transit. Madam Chair, end quote. To your point, automobile, freight, and transit, if not hierarchical, at least is alphabetical.
And I think that's the intent of the rephrasing.
Correct.
And then we just go to improve the multimodal transportation system to accommodate future growth. I'm getting some feedback. I probably have said this before, and I don't mind saying it again. I have a real issue with saying we're going to reduce traffic congestion, because I don't think we are. I think we're going to accommodate future growth, but I mean, it just bothers me to say reduce traffic congestion, because unless you're a real traffic engineer and looking at things that I know I'm not a traffic engineer, but I look at the same things that I know that we look at, like delay in travel time. And so you see a 15-second delay for an individual's travel time, then multiplied across thousands of vehicles, that does actually reduce travel time. But it actually reduces congestion, but a person in their vehicle traveling day in and day out is not really going to see a reduction in the main lane congestion. Somebody on the HOVs or managed lanes might, but normal users in rush hour are not going to see reduced congestion. So it just bothers me, because I think it sounds like we think we're really going to reduce it, and we're really not. But I don't mind. I like saying that we're going to better accommodate our growth, because I do think that's what we're trying to do.
Madam Chair, I think that would be the City of Houston's next suggestion would be, as you stated, to delete reduce traffic congestion and instead replace it with a real goal for all in the region, for Commissioner Ryan and for TxDOT, with reduce crashes, to speak to the safety matter that is principal to our council.
So my next point was going to be, I think reducing the crashes is huge. It's absolutely huge, and I wouldn't marry it with congestion. I concur that reducing crashes needs to be its own point by itself.
Well, you do, and it may well need to be its own point by itself in crashes, but you know, these programs, it depends on how you define reducing congestion. Maybe we could use the word manage congestion better, but you know, it does reduce some congestion. It just, as you said, Dr. Lewis, it doesn't necessarily reduce congestion for people in the main lanes, because the more highway you build, the more people come and get on it. And that's just one of the reasons endless highway building doesn't solve anything. But it does reduce congestion from what it otherwise would be in the main lanes. Still going to be congested to some extent. And it also provides alternatives to congestion. So maybe we could say manage congestion instead of reduce.
I could live with manage. And the truth is, I would live with reduce. I just wouldn't like to live with reduce.
Well, we want you to like everything. You're the chair.
Oh, thank you. But you know, that's not necessary either, but that would be nice also. All right, so we manage traffic congestion, reduce crashes. I also would like to put reduce crashes before manage congestion. That's just another point for me showing the importance of reducing the crashes.
Second that.
Thank you.
Prioritized appropriately.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So read through that if you would, folks, and see if there's anything else that one would wish to make comment. All right, going once, going twice. Can I say yay?
Yay.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go on to the next bullet. You all know I like to have a little bit of fun sometimes. So I have these sidebar stories while Patrick is scrolling. My oldest grandson, when he was a little boy and we'd watch football games on television, his question would always be, who are we hooraying for? So I'm going to say yay, hooray. All right. All right, so our next bullet, where we actively engage and participate in extensive public engagement processes, including TxDOT, City of Houston, or other agency-led events and public outreach activities on the NHHIP. Commit staff and resources to disseminate information on the development of NHHIP. All right, so we have not talked about this one previously. Feedback.
Is it, Dr. Lewis, this is Zimmerman.
Yes.
Is it seems to indicate that going forward, we're going to do that. The fact of the matter is, some of that's already been done.
Mm-hmm.
So is it better to say, incorporate earlier discussions and actively engage and participate?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Lewis, this is Commissioner Garcia.
Yes.
In relation to the many public engagement events that have been held, how do we ensure that, I mean, this is making sure we immortalize the fact that we are looking towards the public engagement that has been done and that has in part shaping this MOU as we're working through it. The item that Councilmember Robinson proposed in part came from the public input. What is a simple line that allows us to remember that we have public engagement that has been provided and that we should rely on?
Mm-hmm. So does the incorporate earlier discussions not do it for you?
Well, though, because it's separate and apart from the public engagement, it sounds like we're bifurcating it. There's discussions that we as the board are having, but and it sounds like we're going to do something that we may not have already done, is the way I read this line.
Let me ask something. Oh, I'm really in pain, but was this disseminated around? Is this paragraph, that was something different on what was disseminated to me? And maybe my staff just didn't get me the most updated, but I have one that doesn't say incorporated earlier discussions.
That just I'm sorry, that just got put in by Mayor Zimmerman.
Okay.
Like seconds ago.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay. Thank you.
To the commissioner's point, you could actually modify it to be incorporate earlier public engagement discussions, and that would capture, I don't know whether that will address the commissioner's concern, but you could actually.
I could work with that.
Okay.
I'll second or third that.
All right.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Perfect. Okay. All right.
Well, Carol, can I say a little bit of a comment?
Sure.
I think there are going to be some public engagement that TxDOT will have to do individually as part of the environmental process, even after the ROT. So we definitely going to engage in these other public engagement that the city or other agencies are going to lead and go with the public outreach. But I'm thinking there probably are going to be some meetings that we're going to lead, and there's going to be some meeting that maybe the city of Houston is going to lead. And depends on how many of those meetings we have. I have to work on the staff commitment and all that, but I'm just saying, trying to make sure that not every single meeting has to involve every single agency and the entire group. I mean, I'm just trying to say that there are different meetings that we have to do, and everybody's welcome to join, when it's a public meeting, but some of them has to be led by us, and then we just send out the invitation and all that. It's not going to be meetings that everybody's going to be in on every single meeting. Just want to make sure that that's clear.
Right. All right. I appreciate your saying that, but I mean, my reading of this, allows exactly what you said, is that there are going to be some meetings the city of Houston may initiate and lead, some series that you may do. The flood control district may have some. So indeed, I think what you said is on part. I think we're fine with that. If anybody disagrees that this statement allows what Eliza just described, speak up. But I think we're fine with what you described, Eliza.
Dr. Lewis, this is Commissioner Beckendorf.
Yes.
I agree with Eliza. That would be just overwhelming for all the different parties involved. But I mean, if somebody's worried about it, we could always put in the language there that the different parties will agree to share the information that they learn at those public comments with the other agencies. I think that would.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Patrick, if you all want to clip that in, the information sharing
Because it does no good for
language.
to have all the information and not share it with the others.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else on that bullet? All right, let's look the next one. Joint quarterly updates to HGAC's Transportation Advisory Committee and Transportation Policy Council. Any comments on that one?
First meeting of the quarter, second, third, does it matter?
Chuck and or Dr. Patrick?
Madam Chair, I would just indicate that we at least want to have a quarterly update on our progress from this work group. You know, don't know if we need to specify, you know, which month of the quarter, kind of the pleasure of the group, I guess, on that.
By the end of the quarter, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just starting with the January 1 year, or HJC's year is October 1.
Actually, our we could actually start with this upcoming fourth quarter will be starting in October, so we could do the fourth quarter of the calendar year and then continue after that.
All right. So I guess we would just click that on, starting with the fourth calendar.
Starting with the fourth quarter
quarter.
of calendar year 2020.
2020. Okay. All right, the next one, develop additional design alternatives for segment 1 and 2 to address community impacts or concerns. I think this may be the one where we consider bringing the item 3 from above down. Right. I think if there's a point at which we talk about it, I'm looking at the next ones. And I think that's the one where we, either between that or the next one, between this bullet, develop additional design alternatives. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think it's define a collaborative review process. So I think it's that bullet that's to develop the additional design alternatives, where we would look at that third one above. Could we scroll up and look at the third one? So is following the record of decision, TxDOT in coordination will conduct the detailed design phases of project development. And so given how I just sort of defined purpose and scope, and I can still, you know, we can still have pushback about that, but you know, my definition was the purpose was kind of overarching and you didn't really pick up a specific task, and the scope you really pick up a specific task. That would kind of argue that this one does belong down there where we're talking about the segment 1 and 2 definitions. So before you cut it and put it down there, let's see if anybody pushes back on that, or if anybody has a different thought about it.
No, I agree,
Okay.
Carol, that it would be, it's going to frame the additional design alternative for segments 1 and 2.
Okay.
Agreed. Second.
All right.
Agreed.
We haven't been taking formal votes. We've been on a consensus-oriented process, and
No need for a vote. Consensus
Perfect.
is good.
Perfect. All right, let's get it to the bottom. We'll do a formal vote on its entirety before we send it back to TPC.
Okay, Carol, can I just a minor point there?
Yes.
I'm good with the rewrite in the scope, you know, that was shown over there. In the actual scope of work bullet, it mentioned design alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
Can we avoid using the word alternatives? Over here, I know we didn't use it here. Detailed design phases, we're good with that. We just want to make sure that the alternative is not in there.
Mm-hmm.
You can put parameters.
Yeah, where the cursor is now, first of all, fix that first word, define. And then to the line below it where it says alternatives. What did you just say, Mayor Zimmerman?
Parameters.
Parameters. All right, now that was great, but go up to the bullet above the yellow highlight, because I thought that was what Eliza was actually talking about.
Yeah, I
Change
think the
that,
yellow highlight is okay. Yeah, over
but
there.
change
That
that one
is
to
great.
parameters also. Perfect.
Is there, let me just ask, is that, I think what we're trying to say is not so much parameters, at least what we, the city would like to say, has more to do with, you know, if it's not alternatives, is it options? Is it, you know, again, Eliza, if you remember the last meeting or 2 meetings ago when we read the language that the Metro lawyers had provided for us, there seemed to be pushback to the fact that what's at the heart of that point was not prohibitive from a federal standpoint, and it wouldn't conflict if I understood, being a lawyer, but I think their point when we read it out loud last time seemed to suggest that there might be a word that communicated somewhat the same thing as alternative, but, you know, to your point, we wouldn't have to use the word alternatives, but we could use options.
So let me ask this, what if we take out parameters and just say develop additional designs and leave out a word after designs?
Parameters is different than what we're trying to say, I think.
Yep, yeah.
And it's
parameters
actually,
is big.
I was thinking the yellow was going to replace the other bullet. One day a little bit redundant.
Maybe.
Well, and also I just want to make sure that we're not losing sight of the fact that the public engagement that we've gotten on here is almost entirely skewed to the fact that the public is demanding alternatives to widening. And so I just want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the fact that if you were to go back to the public engagement, a lot of it is skewed to not just a widened freeway, that they're looking for alternatives to transportation and transit and mobility.
I think, Carol, earlier on, we talked about using design refinement. I think that was kind of the terminology we were earlier kind of agreed to change the alternatives with.
Mm-hmm.
I think the word design is good, you know, as a verb or as a noun, to design or to consider designs.
I mean,
so just a thought is to take this bullet, the one we're on, develop additional design parameters, and put that as a sentence on the end of the yellow and take out the word parameters. So it reads
designs.
Yeah, exactly. So it reads, following the record of decision, text out in coordination with other parties, will conduct, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read it all because we can read. Parties are committed to judiciously identifying win-win opportunities, develop additional designs for segments 1 and 2 to address community impacts or concerns. So it follows what we've already got with the yellow. It's sort of it's an addendum to the yellow, but takes out the word parameters. Because I think the whole, here's what I think, Eliza, honestly, would give people pause if they really want to make sure that it's not just modifications to this design, but really that TxDOT is going to do, you know, come in with another look at this whole thing. so that we're not putting it in here, but people really want to see some alternatives to this design. And I think that we want in this document to reflect that, you know, that we end up with that expressed here.
I think that's what we are doing, and we're looking into doing. It just, the alternative is it's a little bit tricky for us in the environmental side of it. I mean,
Right.
that's really all.
So we're taking out, if we take out the word alternative and just develop additional designs and put that whole bullet at the end of the yellow statement.
Yeah, we're good with that.
Okay.
See what that looks like. Take out that parameter part. And the parenthesis and call it designs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't need the parentheses around the S either when y'all get around to kind of the real fix later.
And the next bullet has the same thing.
Right. All right, so let's look at those two items and see if anyone has additional thoughts, reservations, misgivings, unreadiness, or the reverse. Think, okay, that addresses what we think we've been assigned actually to do with this MOU, or what we as TPC want to see there.
Hold on, before we go off that, after the yellow highlighted, the following bullet has design parameters. We want to clean that up.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Just take that and make it designs also.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Kara, are you moving into the next bullet?
I think we're on the one with the yellow. Okay. And I actually did mention the one that follows it as well. So I think if we want to kind of cover those two bullets, the one that starts off following and then the one that starts off define.
Chair, I think you said out loud that we'd take the parenthesis out. I'm not gonna rest unless you change your mind.
about not having parentheses around the S on designs?
In the two different bullets.
Yeah. So if you all could do that, people, yeah, there, thank you.
Yeah, I have some comments on the next bullet after the highlighted yellow.
Okay.
If we are ready for that.
Let's see. Let's just make sure we're ready. So head nod. If we were around actually a table in the same room, the yellow highlighted bullet, we're fine, and we can move on to the next one. Okay, Eliza, let's move on to the define bullet.
Okay, I think we're good with defining a collaborative process, a review process and all that. What I may have an issue is the review to be conducted based on mutually agreed methodologies and assumptions. You know, this is an engineering project, and I don't try and tell a lawyer how to do his design and methodologies and all that. We have set design criteria, and we have FHWA and AASHTO and all the different methodologies and assumptions when we do our engineering design. So it's not something that is mutually agreed methodology, is methodologies that we've been using for years and years and years when we analyze our project and do all that. So, I mean, I think we have an issue with that specifically, you know, because whenever we're using to review these projects, those are the engineering basics that we use as our guidelines to check and for safety and for all the geometries and design elements. So the mutually agreed methodologies and assumption, I don't think that will work for us.
So I hear what you're saying because I know what you're talking about. But I think, and there might be another way to say this, and I'll kind of, let this thought come out and then see what others have to say. I think what it's intended to mean, and I because I know how you all work, Eliza, I know how you read it, but I think, which means it needs to be reworded, but I think what it was designed to do was to intimate that when this collaborative review process and working together is agreed on, that you all, those of you, sitting at the table, understand how you're going to agree on things. So I think that's what it was intended to mean. Methodologies is a little, I know, when you see methodology, that means something totally different to you. But I think what it was intended to do was to say, how will those of you at the table know when you've gotten to the there on what you're talking about. I think that's what it was designed to do. Kind of like we're doing this in a consensus fashion. We're not voting, but I think what that was designed to say: are you going to do consensus? Are you going to vote? What's your process going to be to come to agreement? So that's again that's my kind of what was trying to be expressed with that phrasing.
Yeah, with that last sentence, evaluation results to be mutually confirmed by all agencies prior to finalization. I mean, again, that is kind of trying to come together and say, this is what we have to do. But TechStart have to do our design and everything based on all the engineering methodologies and everything. So we need to be the one that design that this is designed to the safety standards that we need and to the traffic condition that is available. Plus, this is an interstate project. So there are many interstate freeway requirements that we have to follow, and otherwise FHWA is not going to allow us to build it that way. So the last two sentences is what we have some problems with. I mean, we agreed to collaborative work together to come out with what we all want to build, which is beneficial for Houston and everything. We agreed to do that. We want to do that, but I don't think those last two sentences kind of reflect that.
Let me take a crack at it, Chair, if I could, just because as an architect who deals with a lot of engineers and I need to understand that language and translate frequently, if you know what I mean, from engineer speak to English. And not Eliza, you know me well enough to know that I love my engineers, and we have to work together successfully to build something that works. And in this case, I think to the points the chair is making about trying to understand, in this case, the suggested language, mutually agreed upon methodologies and assumptions, to me, that I think what you just said is we're collaborating, which is really at the heart of it. I think there may be some simpler language here, Chair, that could help really get to the heart of what we're all trying to say here. I think, if the engineer speak is too complicated to understand, then there may be a problem. But if we can translate that and provide clear language and communicate clearly what our intentions are and what we've collaborated to do, then we've got a successful process. If it reflects, from the city's standpoint, if it reflects what the community is concerned about, and we work together mutually to get there. So I'm not completely wedded to the language that's been suggested, and I understand some of the concerns that Eliza's suggesting. So I'm maybe making an appeal to try to figure out something that's really plain English here.
So you use the word collaborative. So first of all, I would honestly wonder if we need the last sentence at all. I mean, because we're sort of making that point in the sentence before. So evaluation results to be mutually confirmed by all agencies prior to finalization. I don't know if we need that sentence.
Dr.
Yes, go ahead.
Question, this is Mayor Zimmerman. If, given what we said in the previous paragraph, and if everything's developed and it is a collaborative design process, do you even need a review process? If you've been part of the front end, then the back end's not going to change. I'm not sure you need to be part of a review process.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody's agreed on the front end, I don't know what you'd be reviewing on the back end.
I mean,
Okay.
but if there is a question to how we've gotten to a conclusion, and based on Eliza's remarks, that there's a lot of and no pun intended, but there's more lanes that she wants to have available to her, and we may end up disagreeing that the design is really what is feasible in order to allow for alternatives to be considered. I think we're now diluting this so much that it does not allow for a real review process to say, have we, are we really giving alternate modes of transportation a real opportunity?
Okay, so let me kind of just do a dump, which I think kind of pulls in what I've heard people say and what kind of occurs to me blended.
I mean, and Dr. Lewis, I guess just to give the engineers some engineer speak, I'm looking for that quality control and quality assurance aspect that the public is asking for, and their quality assurance and quality control is, are we challenging ourselves enough on the point of including alternate modes of transportation and not just accepting widening as the principal approach?
So when I look at, again, what I think this bullet is trying to do, it starts off with define a collaborative review process and work together to review the additional designs. So it's targeted to what the process is that the parties are going to use to work through all of the complexities that are going to arise over the next X number of years. And so I don't know that there's pushback against the first sentence. The pushback seems to come with the last couple of sentences. And so to me, the last couple of sentences are trying to give a little definition to the first sentence. It's sort of, and I'm going to do this on both sides of my brain. On the one side, one could say that what Mayor Zimmerman said was spot on, that once you do the first sentence, that defining that process is going to give you the reviews and the evaluation, because that's what you'll do when you define the process. You'll define your reviews and your evaluations as part of defining that process. So do you need the second sentence at all? On the other hand, I could say that one might want the second sentence to give a little clarification to the first. Now, one thing that I would suggest, probably, I hope Eliza would give you a degree of move you a little bit back on what we said, is the reviews to be conducted based on the mutually agreed on goals. Because to me, when you get into the methodologies and assumption, that's going to be different for everything you're talking about. If it's something flood related, it's going to be one thing. If it's something safety related, it's going to be something else. So I don't know that we want to even try to do that here. But I think we do want to make sure that our reviews are based upon the mutually agreed on goals that we started on at the very beginning of the whole process and the whole, all of our steps here. So I'm going to say what I said again. I don't know that we need the evaluation sentence.
Can I take one crack at it, Chair? Just because
Please.
I think you're right about the opening of this bullet where it says define a collaborative review process. And to Mayor Zimmerman and Commissioner Garcia's points, if we have that process where everyone is collaborating, then in fact, maybe the last two sentences are kind of reversed, like one would evaluate and then review periodically. So if there could be maybe that first long sentence, define a collaborative review process and work together to review the additional designs, including reducing or eliminating identified adverse impacts and defining a timeline for this process. Evaluate and review periodically to confirm, mutually agreed upon goals.
Perfect. I mean, I think that works for me. And the thing, Eliza, that I would hope would give you a degree of confidence about this is that, both of the sentences read mutually agreed. So if TxDOT doesn't agree, it's not mutual, right? You all have to agree in order for it to be mutual.
Yeah, and yeah, if it doesn't meet, we're responsible to the public for the safety and the rules and regulation, hydraulics analysis. We're responsible when we do all the design and all that. So you're right that if it doesn't meet our criteria, we're not going to agree because we can't.
Right.
By our methodology, by our rules and regulations and the requirements, we can't agree. So, we'll do due diligence and evaluate everything. But if it's something that's outside what we can do, we cannot agree. But we'll work together to find a collaborative solution. If the first one doesn't work, maybe the second one. We'll come back and to try and get everybody to agree on something that we can all agree. Mutually agree. I agree. Mutually means everybody agrees. So I'm good with that. I'm good with further evaluation and further review, but just don't tie our hands on what those methodologies and those assumptions are.
Yeah, I think the methodologies was not what we think of as methodologies. Can you leave that highlighted. Commissioner Garcia, Commissioner Garcia, could you come in and look at?
We're working on.
Can you look at that bullet that starts off define, reading all the way through goals and the unhighlighted parts, and see if you have a level of comfort with that?
Training modeling.
Okay. Again,
it's still same
somebody
stuff.
has come off of mute. Somebody has come off of mute who didn't intend to. Commissioner Garcia, are you close?
I'm giving it a read over, Doc.
Perfect.
I might do one wordsmith, Doc.
Okay.
Evaluate and review based on mutually agreed upon goals.
Okay.
Evaluate and review based on mutually agreed upon goals.
All right.
That way periodically is taken out of there. I don't know that helps.
Yeah, I don't either, because what does periodically mean, right? We started off with that. All right.
I'm good with that.
Okay. All right. We're taking off reviews to be conducted. Right. We're taking all that off.
Yep. And agreed upon is what we just said, mutually agreed upon goals. I think, there you go. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Others on the committee. Again, I want to open it up. If anyone else had an opinion that hasn't been offered, if we could hear that. Okay. All right. That takes us to the next bullet. Coordinate to identify if any project components are outside of TxDOT's purview and what external partners could lead those external efforts. Seek partnerships and funding from private sector or nonprofit agencies as needed. Okay. Okay. Nobody, no heartburn about that.
I like the way it's worded.
You do? Or
Yes.
you gonna? Okay,
No, I
good.
do.
All right.
I
Okay,
do.
good. All
Dr.
right.
Love.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, if I hear nothing else, let's go on to that other bullet. Conduct work in a timely manner to avoid unnecessary delays and meet key milestones to not jeopardize TxDOT funding commitments. Okay. Okay. All right. Going once, going twice. Okay. Well, we've gotten through our entire scope of work. Now,
Dr. Lewis, before we go on, can we go back up to the first bullet under scope of work? I wanted to read that one over.
okay.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. All right, anyone else on any other scope items?
Yeah, I'm glad the commissioner brought us back to the top there. That first bullet where it says reduce crashes to make travel safer for all road users, both on the highway and on connecting access roads. How do we
Okay,
feel
wait,
about
okay,
that?
I'm not sure where you're reading. On the first bullet?
Yeah, reduce crashes, trying to think about whether we're talking about the entire facility.
How about make travel safer for all road users, both on the highway and connecting and access roads?
I think that's where I'm going too, Commissioner.
Did you
Okay,
get
so,
that?
yeah, I'm not sure. So, yeah, you all specifically cite
Yeah.
what you'd like to go in there so we can
Okay,
all
to
look at it.
Yeah, to change the reduce crashes to make travel safer for all road users, both on the highway and on connecting and access roads.
I'm wondering if we should put something in there about transit too.
It doesn't, in this case, Chairwoman, it doesn't specify the modality. It's just really
Overall safety.
all of the
Well,
facility.
but it says both on highway and connecting access roads.
Right.
And so the implication is that it's automobile road users. I mean, I said this without knowing of any alternative language.
Does the all road users part, which would include transit, would that suffice?
I believe it would.
I think so.
You could say improve safety in the overall system, and that would capture everything.
Mm-hmm.
Where would that go, Mayor?
Improve
safety on the overall system.
Yeah, on the overall system.
Instead of make travel safer? Is that what you were suggesting?
You could say make travel. I'm just suggesting rather than be so specific and say, for example, main lanes and off ramps. Well, what about the shoulders? I'm just saying, why don't you just make it the entire system? And that covers all types of modality, and it's the system as a whole.
That is the intention of the change. You're right.
Oh, I like that.
I'll go with that.
Make travel safer for all road users.
No, for the entire system.
Wait, yeah, so you all be clear where entire system goes, because I'm not sure either.
Make travel safer on the entire system.
Okay. All the way back. Go back to before all road users. There.
I think you can actually have all road users, and then you describe the entire system for all road users across the entire system.
Okay.
Well, but road users really does imply automobiles. Transit's not necessarily on a road. It can be elevated, etc. So I think we ought to I think it was Judge Zimmerman that said, make travel safer on the entire system.
It's simple. I like it.
Looks good to me.
All right, now I feel the need to read the whole thing to make sure it actually hangs together. So all agencies.
Before you read it, can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Okay, and it's good that we're making travel safe on the entire system and everything, but TxDOT is probably not going to be the only agencies that's going to be able to do that, to work on the entire system. We will need other agencies also to be working together to get the entire system working in conjunction with each other. I mean, this MOU is addressing different items, a lot of it on I-45, but it also addresses things that incorporate a much bigger group that have to work together in order to make everything work. I can't go and change everybody's system to make it safer.
But I think, Eliza, if you look at this beginning of it, is all agencies confirm. So I think that does what you're suggesting. It doesn't, this is not just for TxDOT. This is for all the signers, right?
Okay, good. Yep.
All right.
And maybe, Chair, before you go to read it back, I think our last concern in the final stanza or two, after it says make travel safer on the entire system, manage traffic congestion. And here's the point I think we may want final wordsmithing on. Instead of improve the facility's resiliency from flooding, how about improve the facilities and the community's resiliency from flooding?
Wouldn't that be a result of improving the system and the flooding?
So the thing, let me tell you, in all honesty, council member, the thing that gives me a little bit of pause about that is that I think it may require decisions, and to do the whole community is going to require elements outside of NHHIP. So I think if we leave it just hooked with this facility and not all the community.
Maybe our point was that the flooding should not be just on the roadway. Again, it's a little more of an expansive definition of what we're trying to do, but I agree with you in the spirit of this, and all agencies collaborate. You know, we've got a lot of the language that's really important for the city. So in the spirit of moving forward, I hear you.
And so honestly, if the street doesn't flood, if the facility doesn't flood, then the streets don't flood, then the communities don't flood from that.
Okay. Carol, just
yes.
one more thing while we are changing this first scope of work. In the whole MOU, I don't see anything in there that talks about providing an efficient evacuation route or providing regional connectivity in any of that, which should also be an important goal for the region, because as everybody know, I-45 is an evacuation route. So I just really want to point that out.
All right, it is pointed out. Is there anyone who feels like that's important to be a part of this scope of work? Not that it's not all of those things, Eliza, but that in everybody's working together and looking at the signers, I don't know that as a while everybody is concerned about it, and you know, Chair Patman can come in and tell me I'm wrong, Metro's not going to bear the same level of, you know, kind of response there. Now, Metro will provide buses. Metro's always, when we had evacuations and so forth, Metro's always in the mix. But as NHHIP is developed, nothing on NHHIP is going to change what Metro does necessarily. So I hear that, and it matters to everyone. I don't know that it's an NHHIP specific matter.
Well, let me just ask, in terms of not changing what Metro does, how do you mean? I mean, in other words, when you said that,
So,
my ears pricked up. And
yeah, no. Sorry. So here's what I mean. So this scope of work is about how the entities who sign will work together toward the consensus reconstruction of NHHIP. Putting in the evacuation piece here, in my opinion, you all can, you know, jump in and say, no, Carol, you're wrong. Putting the evacuation piece in here isn't going to change how anybody responds to an evacuation. That was what I meant when I said that. So the NHHIP, while evacuation is important and I-45 is a huge evacuation route, it is, but in working together on this consensus, I don't know that any of the agencies are going to work any differently about this based on evacuation. That was actually the point I was trying to make. Well or not well, but that was actually the point I was trying to make.
I think you made it very well.
Madam Chairman, this is Larry Milliken.
Yes.
I will say that evacuation and capacity is something that is very vital to the entire South region.
No, I absolutely concur. But in the signers of this document, so here's the question: do we expect that anything Metro brings to the table for this project will be different based upon that? Is anything flood control would bring to the table would it be different on this MOU based on that consideration? Because this facility is going to be designed to handle evacuation regardless. I mean, it just will. Whatever is there, Metro will still be able to put its buses on and ferry people out if people choose to leave that way. So I don't know.
Well, I mean,
personally, I
I
don't
mean,
know what would be different.
Look at today. I mean, we have a tropical storm out there in the Gulf brewing. Granted, this go round, we're not asking for extensive evacuation. And I mean, we got hit by what, 20 hurricanes or 15 hurricanes this season, one season alone. And we're down to alpha and beta in the alphabet now. And they're saying that the season just going to get worse and worse. And TxDOT definitely will do something that's slightly different to try and help with that situation. We have to make sure that the movements of goods and traffic is going to be able to go through, and also for the rescue people from outside be able to come in also to help when we need a situation like that. I mean, it is very important to everybody in the region. I mean, we could be cut off and like Javi have no supplies. Other people have to bring trucks and supplies in to supply the 4 million people that's living here in the Houston region. So, I mean, it's just extremely important to us, and I think it should be very important to all of you too.
So I don't know that anybody would disagree with anything you just said. It is important. It's hugely important. I guess as I'm kind of doing this in my brain, and I'm still at how would that change what we do as we talk about this particular facility. I did some work. Yeah, go ahead, because I was about to.
I was just thinking, you know, the word we decided to go with instead of alternative is designs. And I can imagine a number of designs that might have some impact on an evacuation route. And I wouldn't want that to adversely affect any of our regional partners or neighbors. So I think in this case, Eliza's point is well considered, especially given the timing of the storm data. And, you know, Councilmember Milliken's point emphasizing the Southern District and all of our neighbors and partners. I think there could be a way to do this that is consistent with all agencies considering, you know, these important issues.
So where would you put it and what would you do?
I'm not going to suggest the language because I haven't thought of a good one, but I wanted to emphasize that I think it's a worthwhile point.
So I would offer for someone who thinks this is something we should incorporate, where would you put it and what would you suggest? So I'm going on record as saying I agree 100% with everything that was said. I personally don't see how it changes the facility. So, and I did some work for HGAC a few years ago. Maybe it wasn't, you know, it was a different research initiative, looking at how long it would take to evacuate. And so,
Dr. Lewis, this is Commissioner Beckendorf. I just feel we're going to get so bogged down in trying to add a sentence for every scenario, and I still think that the sentence, the way it reads, you know, again, this is an MOU. This isn't a legal contract between all the parties, and I think anybody that reads that will sit there and look. Okay, if we're adding capacity for automobiles, freight transit, multimodal, we're for flooding, safer in systems, traffic congestion. That incorporates or encompasses being able to use that for a disaster evacuation. I'm afraid if we go in there and say, you know, hurricane evacuation, or you know, we have
we're gonna have to define all the emergencies that come up.
Exactly. I mean,
I agree with your point.
So bogged down in the details, we're kind of overlooking the forest for the trees here.
And we would have to put in here flood control and drainage, because the freeways won't work if they're underwater.
But does anybody know what happens when we run out of Greek alphabet letters? I mean, do we?
I think they start all over. They will say they double do it. AA.
Roman numerals.
Alicia, I was gonna say Alicia Allen. So you do two A's and two B's. No, I don't know, but I appreciate that comment and that discussion. So and so for those of you who are advocating that, recognize that we all say you are 100% correct in everything you said. The question is, does that help us here, or do we already sort of, you know, it's already sort of semi-embraced in what we're trying to do? And again,
what about just say provide evacuation and regional connectivity?
I think we got it all covered.
I'm gonna wait for other.
Why is that necessary? I don't understand it at all. Why is that necessary? I mean, it's something that is an overall goal of the region, but why is that so important to you? Because you keep raising it, so it obviously is.
Well, it's the same as why including the capacity for roadway or automobile, freight, transit, including multimodal. It's just another thing that we have to do. We consider the freight, we consider evacuation, we consider connectivity. I mean, those are the main purpose. I mean, we're helping with solving the flooding issue. So it's all part of this roadway system when we do it. I mean, I think it's equally important as every single thing that y'all have listed on there. So, I mean.
So I guess my thought, Eliza, about that is that that's intrinsic to the every component of the system. I mean, everything we do in our transportation net, whatever link we're talking about, we wouldn't be doing it if it didn't have other things connecting to it. So to me, it's kind of it's the underlying premise of everything. That
But not every single route is an evacuation route.
And
I-45 is a major evacuation route for Galveston. Not 59 is not. None of the other freeways are, but 45 is.
But
I mean, it's one of.
In terms of what we've done with Mayor Zimmerman's line in making travel safer on the entire system, that making travel safer is all encompassing. It's not just on Monday through Friday when the sun's shining. It is, I think that covers it all.
And accommodating future growth. I mean, when we accommodate future growth, we're also thinking about whatever we would need to do. And I guess I'm on transportation head, and I'm trying to think of what would that mean? What would that mean to you that you're considering the evacuation? Does it mean you design things differently, or isn't that evacuation necessity already designed in the core? Okay, so you mentioned the fact that 45 is an evacuation route, 59 is not. Does that mean 59, 69 is not? Does that mean it's designed differently somehow?
Well, in some cases it is. For example, on State Highway 36, we are making the shoulder down there a full shoulder, a 12-foot wide full shoulder to accommodate, to make it an evacuation route when the situation happens. So we'll have the main lane, you can call it the normal general purpose roadway, and the shoulder is also another lane, we treat it as another lane. So there are certain design elements that we look at differently if it's an evacuation route or if it's not an evacuation route.
So could you not bring those in the individual discussions, and as we go forward, does it need to be something that's named in the, because so here's where that would give me pause for a minute, and I don't really want it to give me pause for a minute, but it's really a new idea. I think everybody agrees on it, but to put it in here, it's something we've not necessarily seen before. And we're not in a consensus way convinced that it gives us any advantage. And so, again, no discussion about from you or Councilmember Milliken about the criticalness of it. It's clearly critical. Clearly it is.
Well, the flooding elements too, when we design for flooding, evacuation route, we probably would design it slightly different with a flooding criteria to make sure it doesn't flood during a major storm event and all that. So there are other elements that we look at that we incorporate in when a roadway is a significant evacuation route. I mean, granted, we're not adding a lane just because of that. That's not, I mean, we don't design it just because of the evacuation route. Well, that's not gonna be part of it. But there are other things that we look at. I just want to make sure I point that out.
So Liza, in terms of that, would it be important for us to put in here that the entire system would be designed around Atlas 14?
Well, it's already designed on Atlas 14. That's what we're doing for 45.
This question, if we put something in here or don't put anything in the MOU about a hurricane evacuation route, is it going to change the way TxDOT designs it for being a hurricane evacuation route?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I think that answers.
Right.
Probably not.
Design it to make sure that it's the best evacuation route possible. I don't think us putting it in here or not putting it in here would change TxDOT's commitment to making it, as safe as possible in the unfortunate event that happens. So again, I don't think. I guess my thing is, if putting something in here is not going to help us, then why put it in here?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of where we are, Eliza. And I think we're all concurring that what you said is critical. I'm gonna say it again, to actually give credence and credibility to what you said. I think we're all thinking that it's going to happen anyway. And so if something is put on the table that would hinder this as an evacuation route, TxDOT is going to say no. So, and you'll say no because it hinders it as an evacuation route, and it'll just go away. So it's not an element that people need to mutually agree on, because it has to be included that way. So I think
then why can't we just mention it in there? If it's so important that we have to do it, we are going to do it. It shouldn't hurt to just mention it in there.
Because we're not mentioning things that have to be done. We're mentioning the things in this agreement.
Well,
I think the idea of the agreement is to come together on the things that are not obvious, right?
The community wants alternatives to the system. So, I mean, if you're going to feel that strongly about it, I think I'll go back to requiring that we put in here alternative modes of transportation.
Okay.
Well, that's a technical technical issue. I mean, we believe very strongly about the hurricane evacuation route and regional connectivity. I mean, TxDOT does. Those are our goals, and what was really important to us.
I'm glad you said that, because I think I just have our way to do it. When you all sit down and work on the goals, then that evacuation piece, you can work with the partners to put that evacuation piece in one of the goals. Our little yellow bullet here that we're talking about, all agencies confirm common project goals. So the place for a common project goal for that evacuation piece, you guys could put it in there. If you have some reservation about it not being handled, then it can go in there. Because I think what we're having around here is that there are a couple of voices that are saying evacuation is important, important enough that we want it in this MOU somewhere. But I think the voices have been that we think we don't want to bog the MOU down with another thing that we hadn't talked about before. And we feel pretty confident that it's going to be addressed, it's going to be handled, it's a given. And so it doesn't need to be in the MOU, because nobody's going to push back and say, no, we don't want to do something that helps an evacuation route. That's not going to happen. So it doesn't need to be stated, because it's a given. It underlies everything that we have to do that. Okay. All right.
I'm
So,
going to silently protest that, but we can move on.
okay. All right. All right. We'll accept that. I've done that myself. I've said almost every time I say something, you all push back. I don't have to be right. You can push back, and I'm fine with folks pushing back with me and saying, okay. All right. So anything else?
Chair, I'd like to say you've done an incredible job, and thank you very much for your leadership here.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, and I appreciate it. Thank you. A person cannot be a good chair without a good committee, right? I mean, if you all weren't a great committee, I could not. This is not a thing that anybody could do if they don't have every voice around the table. And I do think it's very important for us to hear from everybody, and I appreciate everybody's participation and everybody's contributions to the utmost. Because that's what gets us where we're trying to be at the end of this. All right, so we've got about 14 minutes left in our day, 16 minutes left in our afternoon. So if we can scroll down to the next section. And this is where each party will agree to the following commitments, etc. I don't know. I'm going to Patrick and HGAC, Chuck, talk about this section because I'm not really sure what belongs here.
I got a text from Chuck that he had gotten bumped off the call. I don't know if he's on, Chair.
Okay. Patrick, can you answer that?
Yes.
Or anybody else? Yeah.
So the scope of work, the language that we have reviewed until now, those are all common scope of work elements that all parties will be focusing on. If there are specific additional elements that we'd like to add that are not already mentioned in the previous scope of work items, this is a placeholder to add those type of items. So for example, TPC did a resolution in 2019.
So Patrick, if I could get you to try to sit in a different place because your voice is kind of coming in and out for us.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good right there.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So the scope of work elements that we reviewed until now are the common scope of work elements that all parties will be focusing on. These placeholder sections for each agency to add any additional commitments that we have not already described in the bullets that are there before. And as an example, we added on the TPC HGAC commitments, there was a resolution back in 2019 that had some elements on the commitment of either $100 million or $1.5 million for planning study, $100 million for segment 2 implementation. There are additional commitments as part of the resolution. So we put that as a placeholder in here, just as an example. This is again as an example. So each agency may or may not have any additional commitments to add, but it's up to the discussion right now to see if each agency, each party would like to utilize to add any additional commitments, or if not, if there are none, then we can put that or even remove it.
I think that from the City of Houston standpoint, we would have something to add. I don't have those compiled. I think we made it through more of the document than we had expected today, which is good news. But Madam Chair, as close as I believe we are, and perhaps with as many blanks as there are for 4 of the 5 or 6 agencies, if we're going to ultimately include the Harris County Flood Control District, that there may be some suggestion to submit those to HGAC, and imagining that we don't have enough time with 10 or 15 minutes, 11 minutes left today, if that might be the subject of our final meeting, if I might suggest.
I think that's a fine suggestion. So what we're saying, Dr. P, is if you could do like a formal solicitation from each of the entities, asking for that section and asking for it in time enough for it to be included in distribution for our next call. There's not going to be much to talk about in that because that's just what the agencies are going to commit to. And so it's not like TPC can push back and say, don't commit to that or add something. I guess we could, but you know, the idea is for them to submit what they'd like included in this section. And as you say, if someone would, I guess, prefer not to add something, I guess that's their call as well. But if we could do that, that would be really, I think, desirable.
I think that's a good approach. I think that's a good approach. It allows things to move forward in the spirit of collaboration, and folks want to add their commitments. I think that's fine to do it in that manner.
Okay. So our next meeting, we've scheduled it, right?
It is on October 1st.
Okay. So that's next is that next Thursday? No, it's 2 Thursdays. Is it next Thursday? It's next Thursday. Yes?
Yes, ma'am. It's Thursday.
Next Thursday. Okay. All right. So we're on for next Thursday. So those of you who would be submitting in the individual sections, we'd ask you to get, working on that fairly quickly so that could come out in our next communique about the meeting. And so I'm a person who feels like if we're through at 3:50, we should stop at 3:50. There's no law, regulation, policy that I'm aware that says we have to stay on till 4 o'clock. So let me ask, are there any parting comments, anything we haven't done, anything we need to do?
My parting comment is thank you. See y'all.
Great work today. Great work today.
I just want to add, I want to thank Chairman Carroll and everybody for being very patient with me and especially. Thank you.
No, Eliza, we wouldn't want to do it without you. Thank you for being here. You keep us on our toes.
We're all in it together.
Absolutely. All right.
Be safe out there.
Thanks all. It's raining at my house right now.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
All right, bye.